Hi YouTubers, just wishing you a very good morning here from Sydney, Australia. Continuing my chat around the acronyms of anxiety in part 2. I'm also going to delineate another acronym to add even more symptoms to anxiety, because as we know there are a lot of symptoms and there's actually a lot of ways that you can remember it through the acronym for anxiety. So looking at another one to think about is anticipation. When you're anxious about something and it hasn't happened yet, you often can suffer from what we call anticipatory anxiety. So it's the waiting causes you to conjure up a lot of scenarios, and trying to cope with dealing with every possible scenario can feel very overwhelming, as well as the fact that you've got to try problem solve for every possible scenario. So just keeping your mind quiet during that time can be quite a challenge. Okay. The N is about negative thoughts. So Dr. Daniel Amen often refers and talks about calling negative thoughts ants, automatic negative thoughts. And I think this is a wonderful way to actually try and remember it. Because when you're in that state, you're not thinking realistic thoughts, you're not thinking positive thoughts, you're thinking about all the possible things that can go wrong. So people around you can perceive you as being quite negative. They can also perceive you as being quite extreme, which brings us to the X, because everything that you say sounds like, wow, that's very dramatic. So people making reference to like, oh, she's so dramatic. Sometimes it's not about being dramatic in an attention-seeking way. It's actually about being extreme because of anxiety. The I is also imagination navigation, because you are so busy conjuring up different case scenarios for your anticipation of the event that eventually it's so creative in your brain, and your brain is working in overdrive. So if you start the creative process, there's no end to the creative process, and it becomes more and more original with different ideas of things that can go wrong. And if you share these ideas with people, they can look at you and think like, are you nuts? Are you crazy? Like, why would you think that? And that taps into the accentuating kind of the negative thoughts, the extremes, using your imagination. And then the E is edgy. So edgy usually comes with a difficulty in making decisions. So maybe I should do this, but if I do this, then that's going to happen. So you feel like you can't actually have anyone hug you, you can't have anyone even just touch you as a hello. If anyone says the slightest comment, you're sensitive to it, you overthink it. They might be joking about something, but you take it quite to the extreme, so you're on edge about that. And then that causes T, which is the transitioning moods. You find that your moods just constantly go up and down. One minute you're okay and you're laughing with them. The next minute you're almost quite grumpy and irritable with them. And the next minute you could be bursting into tears. So that transitioning moods is because your brain is sending flight or flight responses to you, and you almost don't know how to cope with all the sensory overload that's going on around you, as well as kind of cope with just keeping your mind quiet. Okay, so Y for this one is yeses. Okay, so what do I mean by yeses? There are so many people that I have witnessed in practice that actually have anxiety because of one specific factor. And that one factor is that they struggle to say no to people. So saying yes all the time is a boundary issue where you struggle to think about, here's a need, what do I need? And am I responsible for this need? So when someone else brings their need to you, you automatically assume that your role is to actually serve their need and give them what they're wanting. And that is usually something that we find in what we call a caretaker role or a rescuer role, and that definitely comes from childhood. And we can look at that in greater detail. We'll also have talks around boundaries and how that factors in. So the person that always says yes is the person that ignores your needs. And that in itself creates huge boundary issues. So I hope you'll remember this acronym. The A is for constantly anticipating events. The N is for just kind of all the time having these negative thoughts. The X is for thinking in the extreme and using your imagination with the I, which results to being edgy, which is the E. And then the T is the transitioning moods that go up and down. And the Y is the person that always says yes. Think about these things. Think about if you can relate to any of these things and just looking at what would help you be calmer, looking at these acronyms and how they could serve you. Okay, have a great day.